Hello, my Philliners. How is everyone doing? Happy June 7th, which is when this episode is going to be posted. I literally have been saying for the past 3 episodes that I'm back, and then I would take a 6-month hiatus, and here I am, procrastinating at its finest. But no. Not procrastinating exactly. I was busy because your girl just got married 2 weeks ago. Let's go. All of the planning, the stress. I mean, honestly, it wasn't really as stressful until like the last month and a half, which was absolutely horrendous because, oh my God. But I wanted to share my entire year and a half journey and talk about it and just talk about things that I was grateful I did, was grateful I forgot to do, or I wish I did, just all the things. And I think like the premise of this entire conversation is just to educate anybody who's also wedding planning. And long story short, it doesn't have to be an incredibly painful and stressful process. There's many things that we do or decide not to do that can make the situation and process way better than what I would say is the expectation or like the standard of wedding planning, in that it's supposed to be stressful, it's supposed to be a lot, it's supposed to be extravagant. And I'm here to tell you that you don't gotta do any of that. Long story short, if you are happy with what you have, go for it. And I think just that beginning headspace of centering it around love, centering it around just doing this for the sake of me and Marcos, I think really kept my head stable. And it kind of kept me honestly grounded, because it's very easy to get lost in all of the Facebook pages. Like, I'm pretty sure I'm in like 5 or 6 Facebook pages about wedding planning, and I think I wanted to make sure that I kept leveled, and that's kind of the base of it. Okay, so I'm going to start with about 12 months out, because very quickly things spiral. So I think maybe not 12 months. I want to say like a year and a half. I'll start with that. So obviously Marcos proposed, and I was like, all right, on the plane ride back from California, which is where he proposed, I was already looking at venues. And granted, girl, give yourself some time to, be engaged and be happy. You don't have to be like me and immediately start. The only thing I'm going to say is, like, I can't even believe venues book out, honestly, like these days, a year and a half to 2 years prior, which is absolutely bonkers to me. First of all, I live in New Jersey, and New Jersey is quite arguably one of the most expensive states in the entire country. Like, hands down. New York is probably a little bit more expensive than us, and California, but I guarantee you New Jersey is at least third in like the top 5. So that being said, the cost of weddings in New Jersey is, because of that, more expensive than, other brides getting married in maybe Minnesota or like Maine, I don't know, South Carolina. And for a while, like even before I got engaged, I wanted to have a wedding that was like not in New Jersey. Just knowing that, like, I already knew in the back of my head it's hella expensive to get married here, and quite honestly, the average cost of a wedding here is equivalent to a down payment, which blows my mind. And granted, it was really hard to like picture a destination wedding or like a wedding outside of New Jersey, mainly for the fact that I just had so much family. So it was a lot to think about. Like, do you want to keep it super small? And especially for me, I was like one of the first kids, if not like at least one of the first groups of kids getting married in my friend group, especially in the Filipino friend group with my family friends and everything, I was the oldest, or at least second oldest, whatever, but like one of the oldest kids. And I feel like the stigma of getting married is still fairly fresh in the friend group. And not for nothing, I really didn't want to exclude everybody just because I wanted to save money. Like, I feel like that's a huge discussion to have with yourself and your significant other. Like, what's worth cutting out, if that makes sense? Because for me, I just wanted a great time. I didn't want anything crazy like the sparklers, like just, I don't know, fireworks at the end of the wedding or whatever, things like that. I just didn't see that as kind of like important for me. But obviously, to each their own. Like, if you want to have a crazy, extravagant wedding, by all means, like, but you just kind of have to be smart and actually budget. I think that helped me so much. I like looked up the average cost of photographers, videographers, DJ, florist, and I at least, put that on my spreadsheet. I am a spreadsheet girly. And mind you, this spreadsheet, like, by the time I was married, there was probably 6 or 7 tabs in the shit. So be ready if you're a list girly. Honestly, even if you're not a list person, like, I think it just helps so much getting my ideas on paper, quote unquote, like electronic paper, but it just really helped to keep me organized. And I feel like that set us up for so much success down the long road, because we even had a tab for just general timeline things. Like, I think also on top of having a preset budget and just kind of listing out what your expected prices are going to be and how much you actually want to spend on every little part, I think another important thing that I did was make that timeline. Like, I think having that even 12 months out, I should be doing this, 11 months out, etc. It helped me at least like keep focused, and it didn't stress me out that much. Like, you could see there's a lot of stuff to do, but like, if you see that make a seating chart isn't due until 3 weeks before, like, oh, it's only 11 months out, I'm fine, I have time for that. And I think that's been really helpful too in the whole process, especially if you're a list person. Like, I think me, especially if I get stressed out, writing things down and when they're due really helps me. So that's kind of like 2 major parts. I kind of, went out of order in what I wanted to talk about. But yes, always start with that budget in the beginning. It has helped so much. Like, let's say you go over for DJ, which I 100% did and don't regret it. Shout out Posh DJs. They were like literally the best. I literally had no regrets with my DJ, and he was absolutely amazing. Highly recommend if you live in New Jersey. So put down the budget for that. Put down the budget for photo, video, florists, and don't forget the little stuff too. Besides the main vendors, you have transportation. You have how much are you looking to spend on your dress? How much are you looking to spend on your groomsman's outfit or your bridesmaids or even the groom's outfit? And I think it's really important to kind of kickstart that financial part of the conversation with your significant other and just gauge what both of you can and cannot do in terms of like saving for the next year and a half. Because like I said, it does spiral really quickly, and just not spiral out of control. I mean, that's a little bit different from what I'm trying to say. It's more of like you just kind of lose track of the little things. And I think especially like looking back at it, I wish I set up more of a budget for gifts for the bridal party and my parents. And yes, I did get them presents eventually. But it ended up adding up so quickly towards the end. I was like, oh my God, like I wish I spread this out over time, because that would have saved me a lot of stress. So also make sure you budget for the gifts if you're doing that. Budget for things like your wedding bands, your vow books, the decor, all the extra stuff that your florist is not going to bring. And I'm trying to think what else. Honestly, if I even opened up my spreadsheet, that would be super helpful at this moment. And yeah, okay, now that I have it opened up, that helps me so much more. Things like your jewelry, your alterations, how much you want to spend on that, your hair and makeup, and your shoes, and your makeup trial, your hair trial. There's so many things that added up. And Marcos and I, we wanted to have sneakers for the wedding. So even that, like, okay, we kind of balled out for that. Those shoes, they were like Air Force Ones, and they're already like $100 each, but no regrets. Like I said, no regrets. And then there's also the save the dates, the bridal shower invitations, the thank you cards, the stamps, how much you want to spend on that. And it's really stressful at first to build that budget. Like nobody really wants to do that. You know what I mean? It's really annoying. And even in general, making my own budget, like for my paycheck, there's no shot I'm going to be spending so much. I spend so much time on this budget, but it helped me keep myself accountable and keep myself on track, because it's very easy to lose track. Like even if just on a normal budgeting day, even on a normal, like, I got paid today, if you don't write down or plan out what you're planning to use your paycheck on, it's going to become the same situation. So that really, really helped me. Then came the searching process, which, like I said, you don't have to start right away. I feel like this is the most important part of like the process. Just don't, just pick things right away. I feel like, because there's a certain like pressure obviously to decide on things, just because of the fact that like everything gets booked up. And honestly, like, I don't think it's because everyone's trying to get like married at the same time. I think a lot of it is still from COVID, which is crazy. Like, first of all, how was COVID 4 years ago? I can't believe that. It's like wild to me. But I think that's what happened is like, obviously during the pandemic, there were so many delays on people's weddings. So then it just like started booking up in advance, and then it started to get worse in that aspect. Like everyone was trying to like compete for a date, and it just got really competitive. So like, because of that, I feel like that's that's like a big portion of it. I don't think that's the full reason why it's so crazy. Like, I think it's just crazy in general, but I don't know. I feel like there's just been so much pressure to like figure it out right away. And I think that's why the schedule has been so helpful for me. I will always tell my friends who just started wedding planning, and just in general for the future, for my friends who eventually will get married, it's not like, I don't know. I feel like the right place will come to you, if that makes sense. Like, it's good to, I guess, plan out the places and envision your dream wedding. And I don't know, I just feel like because you put so much time in dreaming of it, don't feel so rushed in trying to find something right away. And I think that's especially with venues. Like, I think it's really funny actually, because like me and Marcos tried to look at so many venues, and it was so funny. Like after the 7th or 8th place we looked at each other and we're like, everything kind of is starting to look exactly the same. Like everything looks the same. And even though that's not the case, I think it's like just going through the process was getting exhausting. So like at the same time, I would also say try to spread everything out, like keep it maximum like 2 venues per day, because it gets really annoying, first of all, to like sit through the whole spiel all over again. Like, we do this, we do that, we have a maitre d', and just like sometimes hearing the same thing over and over, it gets kind of, like repetitive. So that's why I say just take your time with it. And again, I wanted to keep this entire process just centered around, one, being present and enjoying the process. even the searching process. And two, just making sure that I'm focused on what my center goal was for my wedding, and that was just to celebrate love. Again, people have different goals. Like, obviously, besides celebrating love, some people want to keep it small, want to have an extravagant wedding, and it really depends. So like, obviously, when you're searching, just kind of keep that in mind and stick to it. So yeah, I mean, that's just the venue side. Like, even when it comes to the florist or your other vendors and whatever you think of in terms of your wedding, take your time with it. See multiple places / people, compare the prices, like see if that matches your budget. And honestly, like, it can be super discouraging at first, because I feel like in general, what we budget, even if it's the average for New Jersey, like, it typically doesn't match exactly what you're looking for. So, take your time with it. And I don't regret ever looking at multiple options, if that makes sense. Like, it's tiring, but it was worth it. And there were a couple vendors that I think I kind of rushed on. Like, I wish I had more options to look at for certain parts of the wedding. But, like I said, this podcast exists to teach and to let you know what I have learned. And that's one thing that I think I stood by. So another thing I'm thinking about in terms of just like wedding things is honestly like the save the dates, the invitations, and the bridal shower invites, anything that has to do with signage and invitations, learn to make yourself. I think that was such a fun skill for me to learn. I realized I actually really like designing things, and even the welcome sign, the seating chart, a lot of that stuff I made homemade. And honestly, you save a ton of money on that. If you just go to canva.com, canva.com, that whole website is full of design templates. Like, you don't even have to start from scratch. You could actually like lift up an existing template and just go from there. So I think it's really cool. You can start practically from something that somebody else has already made. And if you're even feeling not that creative, like, someone already has that pre-made. And what's cool is you can save the design and you can either get it printed at Staples or like a local print shop, and you save so much money. Like, one hack I even recommend is when you're making like invitations or whatever, these kind of like, postcard or invitation size things, design it on Canva as a postcard and then print it out as postcards. Because let's be real, they're going to essentially throw it away after. And I know that's kind of sad to think, right? Because you want to be putting your heart and soul into making things. But for me, it was all about like picking and choosing what I felt like was most important to put effort in. The only thing is that like, I can't really be, fully into that statement, because for the invitations, I actually made something homemade and it ended up costing me so much money, but only for the reason that like I failed so many times in making it. Like, don't even get me started. So that's kind of like a give or take. If you're willing to fail and get frustrated and like understand the process a little more, yeah, I get why they're expensive though. It honestly, like, homemaking everything really humbled me, because I was like, damn, no wonder why these things are expensive, because they are not easy to make. So that was another thing that I think I learned in the process of it. And I think it just goes back to, I feel like everything I'm trying to explain about what I've learned in this process is honestly, like, it goes back to that budget. It goes back to that timeline. So I say, like, make a timeline, but also it's not going to be a concrete timeline. Like, just because you say it and, expect to have things done by a certain day doesn't mean you can't change what that timeline looks like, 10 months before, 9 months, or even 3 months or 6 weeks before. Just, it's a live timeline, I'm going to say. And you have to remember that things will come up, things will change, and just keep in mind of like all the little things too, like birthdays, Christmas, people's christenings, other things, just like holidays and trips that you want to take and other things you may have already booked, because I went to Europe during this whole, engagement period, and that was very costly for me. I actually moved a month before the wedding. Why I did that? Why, normal people don't throw two stressful things at the same time, but alas, I am not normal, so therefore I did two stressful things at the same time. But anyways, it's just a lot to think about. Like, I knew moving out was going to cost a lot, but obviously, like, I had that in mind with the budget, and I just knew that that was an okay step for me at the time to move, even though I had like wedding costs and things to pay for. But again, don't make crazy life decisions. Don't go and buy a house right before unless you know you can afford it, because once you buy the house, like, yeah, you bought the house, but now you have to put all the money in towards furniture and this and that. So there's things to think about. So I think just like include that if you're going to plan to move, include that in your timeline, include that in your budget. And that, again, helped me so much. Another thing that helped me was actually like listing down all the stuff that I bought and how much it cost, because it actually helped me for the future, like resell them. And again, I don't resell by like the actual cost, because I think it's really beneficial to like, sell something for maybe 80% of what you spent, because at this point, like, I'm not trying to break even because I already spent so much on this wedding, and you might as well just like help the next bride. But it really helped. Like, I wrote things down. I kept track of everything. Like, even when the payment dates were due, even all of the guests in a spreadsheet, which, by the way, that saved me so much time. Put all of your guests in a spreadsheet and have one column for their full name, one column for their first name, one for their last, and then have a placeholder column for the table number. And then if you're having entree choices, this made my life so much easier. Like, have a column for each entree. So like, let's say the entrees were salmon, chicken, and steak. Have a column for each of those entrees. And then whenever someone RSVPs, like, again, don't wait till the last minute. When they RSVP, the next chance you get their name tallied on that spreadsheet. And then literally, like, towards the date where we had to have the final counts for the entrees and our guests and everything, I was able to just sum up the column, and that was it. Like, because I already spent the time throughout the process of sending out the invitations and collecting RSVPs, getting everyone's entree numbers and recording it as soon as I see it to just make sure it all made sense. And then all you have to do is sum up the columns. So I think that like saves me a lot of time as well, to just like make the last 2 or 3 weeks before the date less stressful. Another thing that kind of comes to mind when it comes to the planning process is the music. So once you have the time, you have so let me reverse for a second. I feel like when you plan the venue, which typically is about like a year to a year and a half before your wedding, there's actually a long period of time in between from like when you pick the venue to the wedding that it's almost like radio silence. Like, there's nobody bugging you about details unless you have like a wedding planner. I'm sure you'll have like communications in between, but there's moments in that period where I feel like you can consider like a downtime. And I think that helped me so much, because I was like, okay, I have time. What are things I can do that, don't need me to wait until 2 or 3 weeks before? Because realistically, you're going to be waiting for a lot 3 weeks before, right? Like, your final meetings with your vendors are most likely going to be about like 2 to 3 weeks before. So that's like the first thing. And then, so there was other stuff I was thinking about, like, okay, like maybe we can plan the order of people walking down. That's something you can do, honestly, anytime. The processional, I think it's called, then the recessional, then even like how everyone's going to be walking out during the reception. And if you're kind of being like your own wedding planner, which I kind of did too, like I wrote up my own timeline. I really pictured every single hour, but you could start small, right? Like, I think the shortest part of most weddings, most of them, American ones at least, is the ceremony, because that's usually like 30 to 45 minutes or a little bit longer than that if you're like at church. But even the church has their own schedule. So, like, you could even focus on the smaller things like, okay, who am I going to have walking down together? Am I walking down with myself? Am I walking down with my parents, my dad? Like, only one person, two people? Are we going to alternate? How many bridesmaids are you going to have? How many groomsmen? Those questions, I feel like you can kind of get completed a little earlier than like the month before. I feel like that was definitely, I don't know, it was like hard for me to think about for a while, just because I was close with a lot of people. And that's also another delicate subject. I think like the sooner that you figure out your bridal party, the better. And you kind of get those like informalities out of the way, if that makes sense. Because honestly, like, I feel like that part of the process was kind of the most uncomfortable, at least to me, just because like I feel like sometimes it's hard to predict what people's reactions are. But anyways, that's something you can figure out super early. You can figure out your song that you want to dance to. You can figure out your song for your dad, or like, you know, your father-daughter dance or your parent-child dance, whatever you want to decide to do. And that's another thing. You don't have to have like, first of all, I didn't have a bouquet toss because I find those things very cringy, but that's just me. I also didn't want to do the corset, or what is that thing called? Whatever, that thing where like, you know, the underwear goes on your leg and like the groom has to kind of get it out with his mouth. And I'm just like, ugh, I'm not trying to do that in front of all my family. Like, no, thank you. Hard pass. I think that just in general, like, I'm not a PDA person. So honestly, I'm not a center of attention thing either. I don't do well with that in general. So like the whole thing was just, I think that whole process was also stressing me out, like just being the center of attention. And I don't cry in front of people either. I'm just not a big crier. So like this whole process, I knew I was going to be like emotional. I was not surprised when I did ugly sob at some points of the day, but I will just keep it at that. But like, yeah, just thinking about the day and just really, I feel like the songs were perfect because we thought so long and hard about them, and we didn't rush to decide on that the month before. And I think we were very intentional with our songs and like, you know, how each one meant to us. And I think that really helped us see the vision. I think just take your time with it. I feel like because you have the downtime, like make use of the time for things that you really want to invest your time in. Like finding the vendors once you're, you know, discovered, once you found the vendors, it's really easy. It's like a one and done. Okay, you already know you're going to go with them, and like it will all be figured out about a month before the wedding. Which, by the way, also surprised me. Like during that whole period, that lull period, I'll call it, I feel like in my head, I was like, is nobody gonna reach out to me and like ask me how I'm feeling? Because that's just what I expected. And they really do wait. But my thing is, I guess it makes sense, like looking back at it. Of course, they'll wait till about a month before the date, because 9 times out of 10, you will change your mind. And I changed my mind like 40 times during this whole process. And like even with the songs, like what we were walking into and our like entrance song and our first dance song was like right from the jump, I was going to do Best Part by her and Daniel Caesar. That's like our song. But everyone else's, I was like, oh, I was so torn, going back and forth. But again, that's why I think it was so important to have it like almost pre-planned, like trying to set time for it intentionally so that I can make those decisions and really, really pick songs that made us, like, you know, made our wedding unique to us. And that was like kind of the whole thing I wanted with my wedding too. Like I wanted to be very close to us, and anything that felt out of the ordinary or out of our usual, like, I just didn't want to do. And that's why I think for the most part, like, I kept my head straight, because there were so many tempting, like, my DJ has a, like, I think it's like this huge light up dragon that people go under and walk around. Like, I literally saw it at people's weddings and I was like, oh my God, like, that would have been so sick, first of all, but it was just not in the budgets for me. But imagine. So even that, like, end of the day, I just wanted it to be fun, but also like fitting to our budget. And like, honestly, if you looked up the average price of houses, like I said before, it's literally like another down payment. That's how much weddings are nowadays. But anyways, I think that that was kind of like the biggest help for us, and just keeping us grounded, leveled, and just making sure we weren't going crazy. And I think also just having that in the back of our heads, like, yes, it's a special time. It's a day nobody's going to forget. So I guess that also ties in perfectly with something else that I tried to keep myself, grounded with. It's that, yes, you will plan a timeline, but yes, things will go out of time. And if you just keep that in the back of your head, that like, yes, things are going to go wrong, and just expect that they will. I almost feel like that helped me stay calm, because like, it wasn't anything crazy, but I think there was something I lost for like 30 minutes for the ceremony. It was for our veil and cord ceremony, and you can't have a veil and cord ceremony without a veil and a freaking cord. And I think just I lost the veil, and I was like, oh my God, like, where is it? I started panicking, but like on the inside. When I panic, I'm always like a person, just panicking on the inside. But that's what happened. And literally, like, I was like, well, I also sweat when I panic. So I was profusely sweating. And it also didn't help that it was like low-key a humid day that day. Just a lot of sweating going on. I think that like keeping internal with the expectation that there is something that's going to go wrong. I think that like set the expectation that yes, one thing will go wrong, but it's totally fine. And like, I think even the mental preparation of like just the whole time, just like reminding yourself that it's not going to be remembered. You're not going to remember that one little thing that went wrong. Like, okay, yes, I do remember it, but like 10 years down the line, you're going to remember how special it was. Like, my favorite memory of the wedding was when the officiant finally announced us as Mr. and Mrs. and I turned to my side and I just saw bubbles everywhere. It was like core memory, 100% will never forget. And that memory in itself will always overpower all the things that like went wrong, whether small or big, for the day. And I think that's like something to remember too, that no matter what wrong happens, it's going to be perfect and you're going to remember it and it's going to be a great day. And also just even manifesting, right? Like, there was another thing too. The weather, I was so nervous about, because the rain, first of all, it rained all freaking week. Like, of course it did. And the week before, it was beautiful. Like, hooray, next week's going to be great. No, torrential downpouring for like, from like Tuesday to Thursday. My wedding was on a Friday. And I woke up that Friday, checked the weather, and it was just overcast. And like, apparently, which I've heard, overcast is like the best thing for photographers because of lighting, which I didn't know. And actually that, like, when I heard about that, I was like, oh, okay, like, at least it's cloudy. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. But anyways, I think that, again, just manifesting for yourself that no matter what, it's going to be a great day. I think if you just keep reminding yourself that through this process, like, okay, I don't know my vendors yet, but it's going to be a great day. All right, this vendor was too expensive for me, so I'm going to have to like look for somebody else. It's still going to be a great day. And I think that that's a lot of pressure. Like, we always want to pick the more expensive thing. We always think, oh, the more expensive, the more experience, the more like the better quality, but that's not always the case. So that's why I always say, like, do your digging, do your research, and really look into it. Because mind you, like, my florist actually My florist, I was absolutely obsessed because, first of all, like 80% of the florists I tried to get a quote from all told me we can't repurpose our flowers. If you use the flowers for the arch, you can't repurpose them and reuse them for something else. Why? I mean, like, my question was like flat out why. And granted, I'm very uneducated with the like floral business, and I'm sure there's like a lot more that goes into it. But like, if I request it, like, you really just say no. And honestly, like, I didn't even request it. I actually like just asked for a quote and they already told me in advance. But like, why? I didn't understand that. And you know what? Like, that's the thing. If they're not living up to what you want to do, you don't have to say yes just because they're the vendor that your family suggested, the vendor that your friend suggested, even if it's your friend. Like, you don't have to say yes if that's not what you want. I think it's better to live a life of picking what you truly wanted versus regretting something just because it was something that someone else suggested to you and you didn't want to make them upset. I think end of the day, like, the best excuse is that it's the only wedding, knock on wood, that you're going to have for your entire life. And I feel like just like hanging on to that too and keeping centered between the decisions that you make and everything, and keeping that like end decision between you and your partner was so important. I think that helped us so much, to be honest, because we had so many differing opinions. We had a lot of other weddings that have happened already, and just a lot of like pressure to either be different or something that people can compare to. And I feel like in my head, I was really like kind of getting into it, like, oh, everybody's already had their weddings, you know, what if mine just like absolutely sucks? And what if it's not up to par with everybody else's expectations? As soon as you catch yourself in those expectations, just get yourself out of it. Just remind yourself this is about you and your partner. If you are happy with what you decide, go with it and don't look back, because that in the end is what feels good at the end of the day. It's like you and your partner, first of all, like, they're only playing such a small part in the planning process. You and your partner have been busting your ass for like a year and a half or two or more, and that should be celebrated. So, yeah, also expect that it doesn't matter if you have a small family or a large family. There are people that are going to be given your opinions, and they're going to try to, you know, step over what you have planned, step over what you originally had for yourself and your vision. Don't let them step over it. Like, stick to your decision, keep your foot down, and really just stay focused on the fact that this is something that you and your partner have built from literally the ground up. And again, that has helped me so much through this whole like year and a half. I obviously, like, we had our stressful moments in just like making big decisions, but I think overall it was such a pleasant process for us because we tried our hardest to like always keep love in the answer, you know, like love in between, love in our decisions, love in our details and what we wanted to pick, like keeping everything all about love. And that really kept, you know, kept us together, kept us sane, kept us as a team. You know, remind yourself, end of the day, like, after all this planning is over, it's just going to be you and your partner. And if you know, you already have kids or whatever, but it's just going to be your family after that. After this whole wedding, all the decisions you decide is going to be between you two. So why not start now? Why not keep that firm groundwork? And like, I feel like, especially things that might cause an argument, like, come back to it when you're feeling better. Pick times that you are in a good mood to talk about it. Like, you know, there were cases where I had a bad day at work or Marcos had a bad day at work, and I'm not trying to add to that bad day by talking about more stressful planning things. So just, again, I feel like the word intentional just kind of sticks when I talk about this whole thing. Just be intentional, like picking the right times to do stuff. When you're picking a wedding dress. Don't pick it around like the same weekend that it's everyone's birthdays or Christmas time. Like, try to plan around that. And just kind of being, a little bit more of a planner behind everything. I think that has helped me a lot in this process. And like another thing that has kind of helped me so much is, besides a timeline for like the timeline of the day and the order of events, also a shot list for your photographer. I think that helped me so much, like keeping track. And we were able to get a ton of photos out of the way before the ceremony. And mind you, Marcos and I didn't do a first look. So like we really had to like think about the order of the photos and what we wanted. And it was really helpful. So if you're not doing a first look, just understand in advance that it's going to be like really tough, because you do kind of have to like scrunch up photos after the ceremony. But to be honest, the way that we planned it, it actually didn't take that long. So aim to have like your main family photos before the ceremony. Like, try to get the bride and the bride's family, the groom and the groom's family, the bride with the bridesmaids, the groom with the groomsmen, all of that out of the way before the ceremony. And that helped us so much, because by the time cocktail hour came around, I think I only kept the bridal party for like 10, 15 minutes. I wanted them to have a good time, and I wanted them to like go and enjoy the cocktail hour. So I made it known to my photographer, like, listen, I want to get those out of the way so they can just go and eat. Like, we'll have our kind of like private cocktail hour, and we'll just, enjoy it. You know what I mean? And I kind of didn't regret that either, like having a private cocktail hour. It really gave me a minute. But that's kind of one thing I not regret per se. Like, I kind of wish I was able to have a private cocktail hour and then go down and see everybody, because like, no joke, everybody tells you that the day like flies, and it literally flew. Like, as soon as cocktail hour started, I feel like the whole day just flew, and I didn't get a chance to really like talk to people. And I was so sad about that, because it just, you're running around, you're taking a lot of photos, and there's obviously a strict order to the day. And it was really hard. Like, that's one thing I wish I had more time to. But I did do something that was super, super helpful, and at least just getting like a picture of the entire group. I was able to get like a group picture from the stage, and I told my photographer, like, we have to get that done, because I just know I'm not going to be able to like fully talk to everybody. So that was really helpful. And yeah, like, honestly, all of the things, that's kind of the top things that come to my head in terms of like planning and what I think was important to me. I think that having, I want to say, like, multiple trials from other places in terms of hair and makeup as well, like, definitely experiment. And also with your dress. So this comes with a lot of the decision making. If you love a vendor or a hair and makeup trial or a dress, try on like 2 more. Test out 2 other vendors and really like get that last confirmation that yes, this is the one that you want. Because I kind of wish, like I said earlier, like, I wish I did look for more options with certain vendors and like actually double confirm that yes, that's what I wanted. I feel like that would have helped me so much. But yeah, definitely look into that. Take your time with it, but honestly, like, end of the day, just enjoy it. And like, even now, I feel like being married, it's been 2 or 3 weeks by the time this episode comes out. 3 weeks. And I feel like, looking back at it, you put so much time into it that after marriage, it's like, well, after you get married, not marriage, you know what I mean? After you get married, the time that you put into planning just, suddenly opens up, and you're like, what the hell do I do now? Like, I literally don't know what to do. I'm scattering, but it's been so great for me, because I didn't have a honeymoon after. We're planning on going in November, but I didn't have a honeymoon after. Went home and actually worked the next day. But granted, I had the whole week off, and I feel like that was already like enough for me to start over. And like refresh, because I had a Friday wedding, and like that whole weekend I was able to, just relax. But that following week, I literally like did whatever my body felt like. Like if I was tired, I was not going to go to the gym. If I was hungry, I was going to eat something. If I was craving Thai food, I'm going to eat Thai food. If I was craving sushi, I literally ate. I eat every single thing that I don't normally eat on like a strict diet. And I just did the thing. Like I relaxed. I did not go to the gym at all. And I just like thoroughly enjoyed being proud of what you spent so much time on. And I think like when you're in the middle of planning processes, like if anyone listening is just starting, if you're in the middle of it, if you're in the thick of it, like ready to rip your hair out, just remind yourself that when the day comes, it's going to be there and gone. And just to appreciate every single step of the way, because I feel like in general, like giving birth, which is a horrible comparison to getting married, but giving birth or taking the test or, you know, getting your degree, once that happens, like that's the loss of it. Like you've already been straining and grinding and going up that hill for so long that once you're there, like that's it. Like that's the last good feeling about it. And I feel like that statement, it's like the journey is always better than the destination, like always sits with me. And I think like even with wedding planning, that resonates so well because it was such a beautiful experience for me. And I hope that I can comfort at least one person listening that this can be a great process. It doesn't have to be painful. It doesn't have to be stressful. And yes, like financial things can come in the way, stressful things, physical things, but like honestly, just listening to your body when it doesn't want to be thinking about wedding planning right now and like picking and choosing the best times to really dive into it, I think has 100% helped us just keep it all about love. And that's honestly all that matters, right? So that's pretty much it. And I think end of the day, like just remind yourself that that's what it's about and it'll be here before you know it. So anyone listening, I wish you the best of luck. And you know, now I get to start like my marriage series and what's going on there, even though honestly like nothing has changed. But I will say that I am not looking forward to adding my new last name to my name. I decided that I'm going to actually like add my now husband, still getting used to that, my husband's last name to my name. And it's such, I don't know, I like don't want to kickstart the process because it seems so tedious and I'm just like, ugh, I feel like I'm going to be procrastinating. Like some of my friends didn't even change their name until like months later. I'm trying to like get it done, but anyways, I have to do all that and like whatever, but I'm mostly happy that it's done, but like we made all the right decisions. We kept our decisions about each other. We really were in touch with all of our decisions. We kept that between us at all times. And I think that just like made me feel so proud and so happy for myself for getting us there. And it was such a wonderful and beautiful experience. I am such a person who loves to be around people. Like spending time with people is my version of quality time and my version of like love. That's my love language. And I think just having everyone there was just so beautiful. I was so grateful and felt so much love. And I wish that for everybody planning their wedding and just making sure that it's really all about love at the end of the day. So that concludes this episode, and I will see you guys next week because summer's starting. I got a lot of stuff coming in June, and I also started reading again. Not that I wasn't reading before, but like actually reading, and finished The Fourth Wing, finished Iron Flame. There's only 2 books that I've read so far this year. I know it's June, but I'm looking to finish so much more, so stay tuned for that, and I will talk to you guys next week. So many things coming up. I'm so excited, and it's like the first summer that I don't have to be a little bit more strict with myself budget wise and just kind of like explore and travel. And I'm just like super excited. So I will catch y'all next week. Bye.